cool. I've got like 50 slides, which I do not want you to suffer through. So for starters, I want to understand, when Eugen originally asked me to come here and talk, it was a lot about customer use cases, which is cool. I'll start talking about that a little bit. But I'm also curious if you guys are interested in research. Like, do you want to understand where that's coming from? Yes? No? Okay, cool. How many of you are early stage startup folks? Okay, good, like that. Okay, I'll do a little bit of that. How many of you are current data engineers who are trying to become AI engineers versus data scientists? Yes? No? Mostly? Or mostly data engineers still? Yes? All right, what am I missing? What roles are you all looking for? Because I said early stage startups, I said data engineers, I said AI engineers, but do you guys want to be data analysts? No? Okay, all right. Sorry?
Full stack.
Full stack? Full stack? Well, we'll probably have a lot of these Gen AI systems actually generate a lot of the code these days, which is both good and bad. Okay, so in that case, I'll be skipping some slides just to try to answer some of these questions. So about me, my name is Denny Lee. That's my title, whatever. Okay, I'm one of the original DevRels for Databricks. I'm employee 58. I joined in 2015. The cool story is that my house was technically the first remote office for Databricks. So obviously that's no longer the case. We're just a little bit bigger than that now. You all know what Databricks is, by the way, or do I need to explain that? Yes? No?
Explain.
Explain? You got it. Okay. So Databricks, we are a company that focuses on basically building a data and AI operating system for you all. Okay? So if you need to go ahead and do data ingestion, all the way to building, if you even want to build your own foundation models, we can actually go do that for you. That's not the thing that we want to advise you to do, by the way. Okay, we actually want you to, if you're going to basically work with Gen AI, you should actually tune your way out of the problem, as opposed to going ahead and trying to build foundation models. And tune cheap models. You all don't need to have each $100 to $5 million of spare money to go ahead and train your models, okay? We can do this actually relatively cheap on the dime, all right? So that's where we're coming from. In other words, the way we look at how you're using Gen AI these days is that you want a quick way to get it into production, make it useful, learn real fast if it's gonna work for you or not, and then basically save money in the process, okay? So, and remember, even though I said save money in the process, I'm also saying you actually have to have a lot of value out of it, okay? Gen AI, most CXOs are the type who says, hey, I want you to go ahead and build a Gen AI solution. What for? Don't know. Bad answer, okay? In other words, you actually have to understand what is the business domain, what are the questions you actually want answered in the first place, all right? So that's a common problem, and this is the reason why people are going in. You don't have to worry about the stats, I'm not gonna go through it, but the context is that's why every CXO for every company is going to say, oh my God, I need to go ahead and have you build a system for me right now without necessarily knowing why they're asking you to build it, okay? Now, because what Eugen asked me, because of the questions I asked initially, let's talk about how customers are using Gen AI, but we're gonna start with your data and with your research, okay? Well, those two concepts first, okay? So, DBRX, I stole this from a slide that I created a while ago, was our short-lived foundation model that we built. You all are familiar with Lamba, you're familiar with Mistral, that's great. We were king of the mountain for about 2.5 weeks, okay? So at the time that when OpenAI and Lamba 2 was out, that actually was pretty good, okay? Not bad for 6 weeks worth of work, all right? So the key context I'm trying to get at is that when we toss in all the models, Gen AI moves really fast, and it still continues to move fast, all right? And we believe in this concept, right? This is what we're doing. For enterprises to be successful, whether it's open source or within proprietary systems, you have to be able to customize the model with your data. So you know how people often talk about, oh, data is the new oil, okay? Or data is the new gold. It's a horrible little theme, but it actually is correct. The data you have and the business problems that you're trying to solve, that's actually how you differentiate, all right? That's actually how you're gonna go build these systems. All right, so for starters, let me talk about the research behind DBRX, okay? So even though this foundation model is short-lived, because like I said, we're keying them out for about 2.5 weeks, what we talked about is that, okay, in every single LLM these going forward, we actually note the fact that it's transformer-based, okay? We call that out. that is actually the importance of high quality data. Lindsey called it out with her previous presentation. Every other presentation that you're going to follow is going to call out that context, that you actually need high quality data. All right. Also, that basically we also called out like the number of GPUs we actually use to go ahead and process all that data. Okay, in order to create the foundation model. All the new systems, including the latest Lamba, is actually using MOE, a mixture of experts. All right. So this is something that we actually had devised from some of the research we had done a while ago. You hear about reinforcement learning, right, as the new thing for a lot of these models these days. That's also something we had actually been working on for a while. It got popular because of DeepSeek, which is great. We're not trying to take ownership of any of this stuff. This is what I mean by the research community works very closely together. We share a lot of this context, and that's how we all get this stuff in, whether it's Mistral, whether it's Llama, OpenAI themselves. That's how we actually go ahead and figure out how to get the latest and greatest into these foundational models, okay? So there's other techniques like rope, gated linear units, group query attention. I'm not gonna get into that because again, that's me getting a lot deeper, but the whole context I'm trying to get at is that how all of these foundation models, they're working, is that all the researchers are working together, sharing their different contexts, and basically being able to merge all that in and basically building the latest models, okay? So if you're gonna get involved with any of these systems, either you're gonna build your own research group, or you're gonna leverage a company that actually already has one, okay? It's as simple as that. So why do I work for Databricks and why do I have this shirt? Is mainly because of the fact that yes, Databricks has its own research group specifically to go do these things. All right, to understand and how to apply that to enterprise customers, all right? You're gonna see a few use cases later on to showcase some of the stuff that we've already done, but this is an example of what's going on. We're already at a point where basically you already know all the main players for foundation models, so that's actually not the real game anymore. It's actually about building agents around it. Okay, so what do I mean by agents? So yeah, this is what I'm saying. It's not just about the models anymore, it's about the agents. Okay, now, what's an agent? Okay, I'm pretty sure if I asked any of you the answer to that question and opened to the floor, we would all have slightly different answers, all right? The key context of an agent though, yes, I have all the stuff here, but the real context behind this is to say, I can't just use an LLM by itself. I need to have something that works with the LLM to reach out, to do tooling, to find additional information. So the example I'm going to use instead is this one. I have a foundation, an LLM that's sitting in my company, okay? It's an HR or perf one, okay? I'm gonna ask the question, what's the compensation for my CEO? All right, now, am I going to reprocess, retune, the LLM every time the stock changes? Am I gonna go ahead and do that? Am I gonna go ahead and reprocess it as soon as he or she goes ahead and gets their extra bonus or the stock goes up, right? I'm not gonna do that, right? Does that seem like it makes sense that I wanna retune my model every time that happens? Right, no, it's not. What I'm gonna do is I wanna build an agent that goes ahead and reaches out to get the latest information and process it. Okay, that's a small example of what really an agent is. It's not just the model itself, but all the tooling that goes around it, all right? But there's the other question. I asked the question, hey, what's the compensation for my CEO? Should I even be allowed to ask that question, right? So more times than not, the answer is like, you're not part of HR, you're not part of recruiting, no, you're not supposed to know. You're just some geek in an engineering department, you're not actually supposed to know this information. Okay, if you're not supposed to know that information, we don't even want the LLM to actually receive the question in the first place, right? So again, that's the whole context of having these agents around to basically protect the model from even getting that question in the first place. So whenever you're building these types of systems for Gen AI, you actually have to figure all of this out. What is it allowed doing? Why is it doing it? What sources of information are you going to go ahead and query in order to get that information? Okay? When you build high quality agents, these are basically the major steps. Okay? So prepare data, create tools, build a prototype, label the evaluations, iteratively identify and fix any problems, collect feedback, and release agents to production and monitor quality of production. Does that not sound like the standard software engineering flow? Yes, no? Yes? All right, because it is. Okay, that's the thing. Everybody thinks building these systems is some magic to it. It isn't. Okay, yes, the foundation models are interesting, but in the end, you have data that you have to care about. If the data is wrong, guess what? The LLM is going to give you the wrong thing too, right? So you have to actually ensure high quality data in the first place. If you're going to go ahead and build something, are you going to take 9 months to go build this thing, or are you going to go ahead and prototype something quickly? Who wants to wait 9 months? Good. All right. Who wants to wait 2 weeks? Yes? Right. That's the point. You're going to go ahead and try to build fast. Okay? Right. So now it's producing a whole bunch of answers. Great. Is it right? We don't know, so we need to evaluate. Sometimes it'll be human feedback. Sometimes it'll be LLM as judge. Sometimes it'll be basically evaluations that you have to go through. Doesn't matter if it's done through an LLM or done through human feedback. You actually have to evaluate the results, figure out if it works, and then basically fix all the problems. If you fix the problem, sometimes the problem is actually within the model itself. Yes. Most of the time, it's not even with the model though. Most of the time, it's the source data that the model's using. So you can fix that. That's a lot cheaper, all right? So that's the whole point I'm trying to get at, was like, in the end, it's just a software development exercise. That's it, all right? And by the way, if you have any questions, go through it. I'm very into the flow of you asking questions all throughout the presentation, as opposed to waiting till the end. But the call out, by the way, is that basically, a lot of the research you've just seen, or basically what I started off with, we've actually integrated that directly within the Databricks platform. We've also open sourced a lot of the stuff too. The whole reason why is because in the end, you want to build these systems, you actually have to make it repeatable, all right? And so, for example, we have one concept. We actually put a blog out called Tau, using time test compute to train efficient LLMs without labeled data. That's pretty cool, right? Why do I want to do without labeled data? Because if I have a lot of high quality data, but I don't have the time to do human feedback to actually label it properly, can I still get better results? And the whole premise here is that you can basically, if you look at this, by the way, take a picture, just Google it, you literally find the blog post that literally details out all the details out exactly how we did it and how you can go ahead and replicate the process yourself, okay? And so the tuning method requires only unlabeled usage data. It improves the quality and the cost for the AI just using the data you already have, which does basically say you must have high quality data yourself in order for this to work, right? And then it leverages basically test time commute. This is what often we talk about with an O1 and R1 in terms of how the reasoning models themselves work these days, and also using reinforcement learning, just like I called out, an old age technique that DeepSeek popularized. Guess what? We're going back to classic ML for a lot of our deep learning stuff. Gen AI stuff these days. Okay. So I'm going to skip some of that just because I know my time is short. But the context here basically is that through all these different techniques, right now, as of basically 3 months ago, the main techniques are prompting, fine-tuning, classic test time compute, and then test time adaptive optimization, which is Tau. Okay? And the context is we're always going to have new optimizations come in. So that's why I'm saying as of 3 months ago. All right? There's always going to be a new technique. But basically, the whole premise of us creating Tau and then sharing it with everybody is to go ahead and make it even easier for you to take the data that you have, with the high quality data you have, with basically, is it possible for you to achieve high quality input and output by using unlabeled data, and then is the inference cost actually really low? Okay, so far what we're saying, as of like I said 2 to 3 months ago, is basically Tau is the current technique. I can almost guarantee you, if you have seen this recording in about 2 months from now, that'll change. It'll be something else. Okay, so this is how Gen AI moves fast. All right. All right. Another quick cool thing about the power of fine-tuning. How do you do quick fixing of coding bugs by this concept called never-ending learning, all right? So for example, if you look within this little GIF here, we're right now writing some code and we know it's screwed up, okay? So this is actually within the Databricks platform itself. And what's happening is that we basically will be able to fix the code problems that the user writes in line inline within the code base itself and basically fix it so that way they don't actually have to leave the browser, they don't have to leave their notebook to actually fix things right away. We actually can literally suggest to them based on the data they have, okay? Now what do I mean by that when I say the data they have? Well, in the case of when you're running analytics within the Databricks environment, we have the metadata of all your tables. It's in a system called Unicatalog. Why do we have Unicatalog? Initially it was there to secure everything. So in other words, are you authorized to query that particular table? Are you authorized to query a particular column of that table? But because we have all the metadata, we know every single column of your table. So we now know how to fix it automatically, all right? And so that's the technique of never-ending learning, by utilizing that metadata, embedding that within an agent within simple LLM, and basically can auto-fix everything for you, all right? So these are these two quick examples that I've got here is just to showcase how when we're doing these things, we're running test beds in production, LLMs in production directly with you interacting with our product, all right? So this is how we as a Databricks get to know the stuff, because we literally are asking you and asking ourselves to work with these systems so we can actually dog food everything right away so we understand what works and what doesn't work. Okay? That's an important aspect or important thing that a lot of people don't do when it comes to working with LLMs, which is they dog food and test things out themselves. All right. And so, I'll skip for that. All right. And so, let's see. Yeah, here we go. And then another concept that we also added directly within our notebooks, all of this that you're seeing here, all these visualizations, is about how to do high quality evaluations. Remember, I told you in the previous section here about how you're actually supposed to build these systems. Again, prepare your data, build the prototype, label evaluation, iteratively identify, okay, and fix those problems. Well, that means you have to monitor them. So you have to understand how to evaluate what's going on. So whether you're using automated judges, whether you're using an agent eval, it doesn't matter, it's embedded directly within the code base, so that way we can see right away what's wrong with whatever analytics you just try to do, all right? That's embedded, and also all this for monitoring, you can see how well the LLM is actually doing, or how well the agent's doing. Again, this is an important aspect of how you build and productionize your LLMs, okay? When you build these agents, unless you've got evals put in place, unless you can monitor these things, you don't know how well they're working. So you have to build these systems right from the get-go. Now, I said all this stuff, I'm gonna skip this stuff for now. I said all of this, I'm gonna skip the old list too, that's fine. Because that's why we have all of these customers, okay? Now we have a lot of different customers that use Gen AI in production. Everything I just said sounded boring as hell, I realized, because I went ahead and came from the perspective of software development engineering. But what I'm also trying to get at is, like, how do we have all these customers doing Gen AI in production? Because they follow those steps, okay? Unless they follow those steps of, again, process, get high quality data, ingestion, eval, production, monitoring. Unless they do these steps, they can't actually run Gen AI in production. So if I go ahead and there we go. It starts with the right use case. Don't worry, I stole this from another slide. But the whole point is that and this is a slide you can take pictures of, okay? The point I'm just trying to get at is, like, each different category, whether energy utilities, retail, financial services, they have a whole bunch of key use cases right from the get-go that are common enough that people can borrow and learn from them and basically be able to operate right from the get-go, okay? So we have a lot of customers that are in Gen AI specifically to do that, okay? So, I'm just gonna do this one just because, again, a lot of slides and with limited times. All right, what I'd love you to do, if you do me a small favor, is whenever you get a chance, go ahead and go to your smartphone, okay, and download the Fox Sports app, okay? The reason I'm gonna ask you to do that is because Fox Sports basically, this is a standard marketing slide, but basically they utilize Databricks to build their own apps for sports. To the point where if you go look at the app, you'll notice at the bottom here, it says built on Databricks, right in the app itself, okay? So this is a cool example of whether it's the ones I listed before, or like I said, for Fox Sports, that they actually utilize Databricks in order to build their Gen AI, production Gen AI solutions, all right? So the key aspect I'm going to call out here is that basically start small, just like any other software development perspective. Go ahead and figure out what your use case is and iterate and build fast. That's how we got here. That's how we got Fox Sports to go ahead and build their production app that's currently in, like I said, you download the app right now, click on the search button, and literally you see it right there, okay? So we have a lot of experience in terms of how customers are utilizing Gen AI production. What I'm saying is that you can do the exact same thing, but you gotta follow all of those steps that I called out before in order for any project to succeed. All right, make sense? All right, cool. So, I'll skip that. Okay, how can you use Databricks right now? We actually have Databricks Free Edition. Just Google or whatever, literally type in Databricks Free Edition. It is literally free, okay? It is, we're not charging you money, but make sure you search for it because our marketing team did make the link on the main page a little bit hidden, so I don't want you to do that. So this is actually the full URL right there, but the idea is that you get Databricks Free Edition. We are not asking for money. This is free for life, okay? If you're into startups, okay, we have a Databricks for Startups program, all right? That means we're giving you credits, we're investing in you, and also we have Databricks Ventures. So in other words, traditionally, when it comes to Databricks Ventures, we talk about investing in companies that are Series B and onwards, though recently we were doing Series A with the Databricks for Startups program, which also I'm helping out quite a bit with. We're actually working, you're gonna hear a few more announcements over the next couple of months about early stage startups, i.e. pre-seed. So if that's something that you're into, then definitely look out. You can either ping me, Denny Lee, or look out for it, but we're gonna have some announcements on how Databricks can invest in also early stage startups as well, okay? Cool, so I think I got 5 minutes left, right? Okay, any questions? I realized I went ahead and went down the rabbit hole of software development, but that, like I said, that was the context by which you can go ahead and start building these systems in production.
Hi, I would like to ask the security question. Just like I mentioned, who has the right to ask the certain questions, right? Is the rule-based or the LLM model based to integrate it? Because if you LLM model to fine-tune it, we need a lot of time. For the rule-based, maybe you have some tricky things in not cover.
Okay, so the question is, if I'm going to go ahead and do security around these systems, am I doing it rule-based, or can I actually do something akin to Gen AI? Okay, the reality is it's some combination between rules / traditional machine learning / Gen AI itself. The reason why I'm giving you the answer that way isn't because I'm actually trying to stay away from that question. The reason I'm actually is because I'm not a lawyer, okay? And the reality is, if you're talking about the same compliance, like let's just say it's a HIPAA rule, all right? Depending on the lawyer, for the exact same rule, they're gonna have a different interpretation on what should be applied or not. So for example, when it comes to financials, it took us for companies a long time for them to switch from a rules-based. Like for example, I remember one company literally had 8,000 rules that they actually would have to process to basically see if they actually were, like, in essence, it was like a really painful B tree or decision tree, but basically they had actually to go through 8,000 lines. It was an 8,000 line case statement that they actually had to process, okay? In the end, we proved, when we were working with that particular company, I can't mention them, but I can at least give you the context of the case. We actually were able to show that basically using traditional machine learning was more efficient and actually just as accurate. So that's most of the context. So in that particular case, they were perfectly fine switching over to machine learning. Same category, but different company, they basically had to stick with the original rules because that's how their lawyers interpret it. So in the end, it's not that I don't want to answer you. What the actual answer is that you're going to actually have to work closely with your legal department to figure, and your security department, on how they're going to, what's the financial or fiduciary responsibilities when they build something like this. Now, in almost every single scenario, including the second case, they eventually did switch to machine learning, by the way, okay? It just took longer. So in the end, I do think all of these systems, including security, are going to start using less policy rules-based, or at least that's what they start with, and more machine learning or Gen AI-based. But only for you to do that, you actually have to iterate. You have to try out things. You have to prototype things. Unless you're doing those things, basically, you're never going to get your company to actually make that switch. Make sense? Cool.
Hey, so for Databricks for startups, what are the characteristics that you are looking for from those startups?
Okay, so the high level for characteristics is number one, you're building your product partially on Databricks. I mean, if you do fully, obviously the better, but at least you're using partially for Databricks. In the end, is it a system that is actually going to be where we think the company is going to be either acquired or become the next great thing, all right? Standard VC investment. So basically, if I talk about DB Ventures, that's, like I said, that is very much in the vein of Series B, though recently Series A onwards, okay? For the new Databricks for Startups program, which is not quite ready for me to talk about, the basic principles that we actually want to give you free credits. That's why I talked about Databricks Free Edition right away, so that way you can start playing with it. If you all of a sudden are really utilizing lots of GPUs in order for you to do your processing, that's okay. You can start talking to us about that. We can potentially provide that context for you. But then it's usually what it comes down to is what type of investment are we making, and in return, what type of equity can we get back in return? Okay. So there's this. It's a standard angel to VC portfolio play at this point.
Well, what's the data that you want?
Oh, data as in terms of
like the kind of company that would use Databricks to do what like the Fox Sports thing is, right?
So if I go back to this slide, any company, any data, okay? We're not choosy about that part, okay? In other words, what we're looking for is, do you have a high quality data set of some type? Whether it's you generated, whether it's a synthetic data set that's based off an original data set but legally allowed, and you're actually able to build a wonderful use case around it. That's the most important thing. That's it. Like I said, we have a very large variety of customers that are already in production with Databricks, right? So we're not afraid of this concept of whether, healthcare is too hard, or security is a different context, or financials too fast. All the above, like they're all listed here, right? Oil and gas is listed here, M&E. So the point from where we're coming from is do you have some high quality data that you can build a cool business app on top of? You've got that, definitely talk to us. Make sense? Cool. Sure, go for it.
Yeah, looking at all the options on enterprise customers, I'm just curious, any insights on when they put on production, how many of those want to put on-prem versus the cloud, and how are they using the models? Are they preferring open source or the closed source frontier?
Okay, so for starters, because Databricks, we work on the cloud, so the vast majority of the cloud. Now, it doesn't mean we don't work with some companies that are on-prem, but I'm just trying to give you that context to simply answer that we're a little bit biased on the cloud. Okay, so in other words, the vast majority of the customers we're talking to are on the cloud. Even if they work on-prem, they actually will typically have a very large cloud component, okay? Just because in the end, that's the most efficient way to, it's not even about processing data anymore. It's the most efficient way to hire people, right? That's it. Literally, you want people that actually know how to build the latest data engineering tools, the latest AI, the latest anything, it's on the cloud. The vast majority of people who can build on-prem, they have a slightly different skill set. Doesn't mean it can't translate, by the way. We want to be very clear about it. But the default setting of an on-prem developer and the default setting of a cloud developer are different things, okay? Now, in terms of open source versus proprietary, bleeding edge versus whatever else, the literal answer is all of the above. Like the reason Databricks offers all of them, okay? We offer all the open source ones. We offer we have partnership deals even with Anthropic and Gemini. Gemini literally has a partnership deal with us so that you can run Gemini models, not just on Google anymore. You can run them on AWS, you can run them on Azure because you're running them on Databricks, in fact, okay? So the reason we do that is because every single model has their strengths. If you look at the benchmarks out there, okay? Every single model has their various strengths and their various weaknesses. So our job as Databricks isn't to go ahead and tell you, you're limited to this. Like, we will provide advice to you to say, yeah, based on your scenario, maybe Gemini's the better one, or maybe Claude's the better one, or whatever else, okay? But in the end, more times than not, you're gonna test this anyways. So even if we provide you the advice, you're gonna run it, you're gonna test it, you're gonna monitor it, you're gonna see how well it runs. That's why I showed you all that monitoring stuff in there. Again, a little bit boring, but why? Because you're constantly testing, validating, running A/B tests to see if one model's better than the other, right? So for example, I run a bagel test, okay? Now this is not true science at all. So in fact, I'm pretty sure I'm going to insult a bunch of people because I'm determining if the model answers which has better bagels, Montreal or New York. I'm expecting the model to say Montreal, okay? Because I'm from Montreal, right? Now for all the New Yorkers here, or all people who love New York bagels, I've just offended the living crap out of them, okay? But I can also say Lamba, Mistral, and OpenAI all have answered correctly Montreal, so I'm actually pretty happy. But the point I'm trying to get at is, like, each model is going to have a particular strength and weakness. Just because Claude answered New York doesn't mean I don't want to use Claude. Not for bagels, obviously, but the point is that's the context, right? So you're going to constantly test, and the reality is all of the above comes into play. The one defining factor is that I would always start with the smaller models, and I would see if I can fine-tune my way out of the problem. That's it. Because if you can fine-tune, it doesn't cost that much money to fine-tune it, and you have excellent accuracy, and it uses less of the GPUs, so you have less tokens, so it's cheaper for you to run overall. So that is, if you get nothing else from everything I just said, I would start with small models, and I would go ahead and fine-tune my way out of the problem. Make sense? Cool.
One more? Anyone? No? Okay.
So I have a question in general for Databricks. Are you seeing a trend in this space as a SaaS provider? I work for a SaaS provider as well.
Cool.
Kind of a shift to the left of taking on more of the role of system integrator with all the move towards custom models, custom integrations?
Okay. This is an interesting one because the answer is slightly different depending on where you're coming from. I would say personally, at least from a Databricks perspective, no, I don't see us, for example, Databricks, going ahead and becoming a system integrator, okay? I see our partners doing that. I see the partners that are using Databricks doing that because we're not here to be experts in finance. We're not here to be experts in healthcare or whatever a system integrator is, right? We're here because we can provide the cheapest, fastest, best tooling for you to run your system. There will be SIs out there that will specialize in how to build the best financial models or how to build the best healthcare for HIPAA compliance or whatever else that you're trying to do. What we want to do is we want to help them do that. So at least from a Databricks perspective, no, we're not going leftward on that one. So hopefully that helps. All right. Well, thanks very much, everybody.